Hey everyone, I'm Kevin with Victory 4x4, and in this video, I'll show you how we install our rear window MOLLE panel in a 200 series Land Cruiser. Alright, so first things first, we need to get this third row seat out of the vehicle. In order to do that, we've got to remove these two plastic cover panels to access the mounting hardware. These are just going to be held in place with some plastic clips, so we can get kind of just a hand underneath one of these edges and start pulling out with some relatively firm pressure, and that'll release those. Now on this one back here, it's probably easiest to start underneath, and then that kind of pops up and then releases from the other section. Next, using a 14mm socket, you can access the two mounting bolts at each bracket and pull those out. Next, you can pull the fold down release lever right here, releasing the top side of the seat from this panel, and then lift it out of here. Next, we'll need to remove this trim panel. In order to do that, this one's again just held in place with some plastic clips. So you can come down here, kind of starting at one end, get your hand under there and pull up with some kind of firm pressure. And once you get one end started, just kind of work all the way across. And then remove that from the vehicle. Next, you'll have a small clip to remove down here on each side. For that, you simply push in on the center using a screwdriver. And then with a panel tool, you can pop that right out of there. Next, you can remove this plastic clip. For that, you simply need to rotate it and it'll pop right out. And then you'll take your Phillips and remove the screw that's down in this hole. After that, you can come up top here and remove your seatbelt mounting bolt. For that, this cover is just kind of snapped in place, so you can squeeze the bottom of it, it'll flip right up, and that's going to use your 14mm socket. Now right here, we're working inside the rear passenger door. You're going to need to remove this plastic cover. Then again, using your 14mm, we're going to remove this seatbelt mounting bolt. Now, just ahead of where that seatbelt mounts, you'll come down here to the floor, and there will be a small round cover to remove. Just use a flat blade screwdriver, and with that cover out of the way, you'll expose this small 10mm as well as Phillips bolt head. Pull that screw out. Now we can pop the rear of this panel loose just to expose this bottom corner of our side cover. And that should give you enough room to get this out from under it. Now with all those fasteners removed, we can begin by working around these edges, getting our panel tool or just your fingers, if you can get under there, behind that, and then pulling outward to release all the plastic clips behind here holding it in place. Now once you have all the clips that hold this panel in place free and the panel just kind of sitting here loose, you'll want to come back to the rear and disconnect these wiring harness connectors. Those are just on a little thumb tab that you push down and allows them to slide out of the opposing end. And then you'll also need to pull this clip right here from the back of the panel to release that harness. After that, you can remove this entire panel from the vehicle. With that out of the way, working up here on this front panel, you're going to have a small 10mm bolt to remove down here on the bottom, and then the rest of that panel will be held in with clips. Next, on this rear upper panel, we can just pull this one out because it's just held in with clips at this point. Now lastly up here, you have one more plastic trim piece. This one is held in with some plastic clips, but they're going to be just a little bit different because this has an airbag behind it. So you're going to have to pull this down and it's going to kind of hang on those clips, and then I'll kind of show you how to remove those. Now you can see at this point we've got this pulled down, but it's still hanging on these 3 clips. So these outer 2 are not going to be reused. You can fight them out of here with some pliers and stuff if you want, or you can simply come in here with some cutters and snip them free. Now for this middle one that is going to be reused, I'm simply going to come in here with some needle nose pliers just above the panel and kind of grab that strap portion of the clip to turn it 90 degrees, and it'll slide right out of that slot. Now after you have the panel out of the way, you will need to come back and remove these 2 clips that we cut. Now with the plastic clips out of the way, you can grab your provided nut clips and just coming in here from the side, slide one of these onto each of those metal brackets. Now to modify the cover panel that goes over those nut clips, you'll need to come in here on the back side of this panel, and then centered on each of these slots, drill a small pilot hole out through the front of this panel. And then you'll want to come in from the front side and open both of these holes up using a drill bit to accommodate your short 1/2-inch spacers. Now here on the back side where the factory clips mount, you just want to be sure that you don't drill so far back through that you open that up, because we want our short spacers to tighten up against that material later. After all that, you can simply reinstall this center clip and snap this panel back in place. Now to mount the bottom side of the panel, we're going to be using these 2 existing factory holes as installation points for our nutserts. If you're having any trouble at all identifying those locations, one quick tip, you can kind of roughly hold your panel up here in place, line your top holes up with the holes you drilled in this panel earlier, and then come straight down from those, and that'll identify which ones you're working with here. Now to open these 2 holes up to accommodate the nutserts, you're going to use the provided 23/64 drill bit, and you're kind of working with some light sheet metal here, and you don't have to open these up too far, so just use kind of light to moderate pressure. Now to get these nutserts installed, we provide you with everything to build an installation tool. So you'll take the long 6mm bolt, first install that flat washer, next that tall nut, followed up by a lock washer, and then your 6mm nutsert. Just like that. With that tool all assembled, install the nutsert into the hole you just opened up, and then holding that tall nut with a 1/2-inch wrench, you can turn the 6mm screw with a 10mm socket. Now in this case, I'm going to be using a drill to power this. It can also be done with a ratchet. Just note that on my drill, I've dialed back the ratcheting mechanism here so that I don't pull that so tight that you pull the threads out of the nutsert. Then I can reinstall a new nutsert onto my tool and come back here and do the second one. Now the bolt pack you get for these is used across multiple products, so you're going to have some extra nutserts, which works out for you in case you mess one of these up, or you want to try out a practice one in a different piece of material. Now we can go drill the corresponding holes in our outer plastic panel to access these. Now the holes we just installed our nutserts in were originally for some of these plastic clips on the back side of this panel. So find the two corresponding clips that work with those nutsert locations, and we'll remove those from the panel. And then we can drill our holes for our spacers. Now to do this, it's going to be much like the holes you drilled previously in the other panel. You're going to come in from the back side with a small pilot bit, and centered on that clip location, drill back out through the front of the panel. We'll do that for both of these holes. Now drilling back through the front side, we're going to open these up to accommodate our longer 5/8 inch spacers. Just make sure, much like the other panel, not to damage that plastic clip mount on the back side. Now that we have those holes drilled, we can begin reassembling the interior, starting with these top two panels. Now we can make sure we cleaned up any metal shavings or mess we might have made, and then reinstall this lower portion. All right, in the rear, you want to make sure that you get this seat belt routed out around the panel, and then you'll also come back in here and reconnect your wiring harness, as well as the clip that holds it in place. Now you want to make sure when you're back here pushing these panels back in that the seal winds up like this, up on top of the panel and not pinched in behind it. Next, we can reinstall this rear cover panel. Just go ahead and line it up and snap it back in. Now to install our top two mounts, they're going to look just like this. One's going to be just a little bit smaller than the other, and that one's going to be your front mount. So we'll start with that. We'll start by inserting our long button head bolt through the shorter leg of that bracket, and then our short black spacer on top. And then we can begin threading this in the hole by hand. Now we're going to do the same thing here on the rear top mount, installing the bolt through the shorter leg of the bracket, and then just leaving everything a little bit loose until we get the panel installed. Next, using two 1/4 inch button heads as well as serrated flange nuts, we can hang our panel loosely from these top two mounts. These two longer mounts are going to be your bottom mounts for the panel. The longer of the two is going to mount at the rear, making sure on both of these that the slotted end mounts to the MOLLE panel using, again, 1/4 inch hardware. After that, you can take two of your longer spacers, insert them into the holes you drilled in this panel, and then install the bottom end of these brackets using the longer 6mm hardware. Now that you have everything started, you can square up your panel in the opening, kind of straighten out your mounts on those slots, and then tighten everything up. Now after you have everything tight, your install is complete. Now you could reinstall your third row seat at this time, however just know that we do not recommend third row passengers once you have these installed because they may affect the path of a side curtain airbag in the event of an accident. Now if you guys have any questions about this product or any other product we offer here at Victory 4x4, feel free to reach out to us, info@victory4x4.com, or give us a call, 269-459-8447.